Salutations, everybody. Welcome to this special companion video for Dark Side, Light Side. Now, what's a companion video? Well, you see, the last show of Dark Side, Light Side, we took a whole bunch of questions, Star Wars questions, but we didn't have time to get around to all the questions that got sent in. We want to make sure that those questions get answered properly in a video. And listen, I got to admit, this is coming a little bit late because it was almost a week ago that we did that show. But both Christian and I are both adjusting to, on top of our already kind of busy schedules, putting in this new show as well as doing the companion video. So my apologies that this companion video for last week's episode of Dark Side, Light Side is coming late. It won't come this late again, I promise. It's just a matter of us getting a little bit adjusted. But listen, the important thing is that we are now here right now to answer those outstanding questions from last week's show. So let's not waste any time and get right to it and start answering those outstanding questions. And the first one we're going to start with here is Alex M., who writes, what would be the best way to weave any animated characters or references to them into The Mandalorian? GL with Sen. I have no idea what that means. Anyway, honestly, none. I like keeping animated and live action separate, to be honest with you. That's just kind of my preference. But that doesn't mean there wouldn't be good things to do and there wouldn't be good ways to do it. There are lots of movies and TV shows where if you ask me in advance, I'd go, I don't want them to do that. But then they find a way to do it that's actually pretty interesting and cool, and I end up liking it. So maybe there's a way. But listen, there's no magic formula. It's just like anything else, just like with any other character you bring in. Each individual, there's no one formula to say, what's the best way to bring these characters in? It all depends on what the story is, how the whole thing goes with The Mandalorian, which characters would fit from the animated catalogs and whatnot. So unfortunately, Alex, there's no one pad answer for that. So in general, I'd rather not see any. I like keeping those worlds separate. But there probably would be interesting ways to do it. But I believe each one of those ways would be very unique to the individual character. So there's no one formulaic way to do it, unfortunately. All right. Sondrol Productions writes, hey guys, love seeing the two of you back together. And Christian and I very much love working on this show together. We had a really good time last week. Can't wait for tomorrow's show. Anyway, I'm in the minority here, but Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars. Well, you know, I don't like it, but I believe it is the least offensive of the Star Wars prequels. I put it that way. I think it is the best of the prequels. I'll give it that. It's my favorite Star Wars. The fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan gets me every time. You were the chosen one. There are certainly moments in that fight that are great. There are also moments in that fight that is some of the worst stuff ever put to screen in a Star Wars movie. But there are moments. And because, you know, we have been waiting as Star Wars fans. You could make an argument that we had been waiting since, you know, the third act of Star Wars A New Hope. You know, hearing about the history between, you know, the last time we met, I was but the learner, now I am the master. You know, ever since we heard that, what was that fight? And through legends and everything we heard, it was like some volcanic thing, and then it finally came in to see that moment, and to see Ewan McGregor, who's fantastic. See, Ewan McGregor said, you were my brother. You know, that scene definitely has its moments, and there's some great action in the moments. There was, of course, a few moments that kind of throw a little bit of a sour taste, like that moment they stand in front of each other, twirling their lightsabers for about I believe it was, get a count on that, but I believe it was 17 hours. Yes, 17 hours they stood there going, it's like, okay, that's kind of stupid. Anyway, but aside from that, it is definitely a scene that has some really big highlight moments. And look, as much as I personally am not a big fan of the prequels themselves, I am one of the biggest defenders of the lightsaber fights in the prequels, because I know even some people who love the prequels who don't, you know, like Yoda's lightsaber fights. I love the Yoda lightsaber fights. I don't even like the movies that much. I love, and I will defend those Yoda lightsaber fights, which again is kind of funny. Again, I'm pounding on my microphone here, which is kind of funny because, like I said, there are even some friends I have who really like the prequels who don't like those scenes. But whether it's his fight against Palpatine or his fight against Count Dooku, particularly his fight against the Count, I love that thing. Seeing Yoda all of a sudden bouncing all right, because a guy that small can't fight traditional lightsaber technique. He's pound for pound, he's just too overwhelmed. So he compensates for that with extreme speed and agility, which just makes it all the more awesome because he's, I'm Yoda. Like, there's something great about that. But anyway, that's just me. Anyway, son, you like what you like. That's the only important thing. It doesn't matter if it's not the popular opinion. The only thing is, What was it to you? And if that's what it is to you, then that's what it is to you, and that's the most important thing. All right. Ross Orlando writes, chance of Ahsoka cameo in The Rise of Skywalker, or do you think she could have her own Disney Plus series, and who would you cast? Well, I never take casting questions, so that's I won't do it in Star Wars. I don't do it for anything else. I never take X actor and X roles. As long as somebody's a good actress, that would be fine. I don't like the Ahsoka Tano character. Now, that puts me in the minority. Now, granted, she had some... Even I started to warm up to her a little bit in the... in Rebels. Even I started to warm up to her a bit in Rebels. That said, I don't think there's any chance she shows up in The Rise of Skywalker. If Dave Filoni was directing The Rise of Skywalker, because again, I'm convinced Dave Filoni goes to bed touching himself every night thinking about Ahsoka Tano. He's got a complete, fanboy hard-on for that character. If he's... Listen, the first movie that Dave Filoni directs, and he will get an opportunity now that he's doing Mandalorian, he's directed some actual live action stuff with Mandalorian. I believe we're not far away from Dave Filoni getting a crack at directing a Star Wars movie. And when he does, I'll give it like a 70% chance that one way or another, Ahsoka Tano is going to be the character in that. But as far as The Rise of Skywalker goes, no, I think extremely, extremely slim that we get her in the Rise. I think most people would think it's an extremely slim possibility we get her in there. But you never know. You never know. Never say never, especially in the world of Star Wars and stuff like that. All right. A fan of Peanuts writes, where'd we go? There we are. I'm tired of this. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi to Rise of Skywalker. Meh. Any thoughts? I don't know what it is you're asking me, a fan of Peanuts. Sorry about that. Jedi Master 677 writes, been watching since you two and a certain fanboy first talked about Star Wars. Well, the very first episode, Christian and I created Jedi Council. And the very first episode we did was me, Christian, and a buddy of mine named Paul Enns. Now, Paul Enns, some of you may not recognize the name. Paul Enns is I knew him because we worked together on something, but I knew him as a massive Star Wars fanboy like me. And he became like one of the main guys at what was at the time the absolute king of all Star Wars fan sites. And it was called theforce.net. And it was, for a while, it was the king of all Star Wars fan sites. And my buddy Paul, this is when he and I were both living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. My buddy Paul was kind of one of the guys running that site. And then the dream happened. Lucasfilm offered him a job to be the director of something. Basically, he was running all of the Lucasfilm online stuff. And he got to go in there and he got to be a part. He's even in some of the prequel behind the scenes documentary stuff. And he produced some of the behind the scenes stuff, and he was very, very involved in it. And he got to live the dream. He got to go work at Skywalker Ranch and do all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he no longer works at Lucasfilm. He went on, he runs a comic book company called Red 5 Comics, which is an homage to his Star Wars fandom. So he started a comic company called Red 5 Comics, ran a company called Beagle Productions, and then was one of the directors of a visual effects company. Anyway, getting off on a tangent here. So the very, very first episode that we did was me, Christian, and my buddy Paul. And my buddy Paul lives in Calgary, so he had to Skype in, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and it's been 2.5 years since Christian and I did a show together, so it was really great for both of us to get back to it. So thanks for sending that in. All right, Patrick Conway writes, I think we would get a Finn and Poe team-up show. Somebody asked during the Dark Side, Light Side last week what we could see maybe transitioning from the big screen to the Disney Plus screen. And I said, listen, I could totally see any of those big three because we know Kathleen Kennedy has plans for those characters, but they might have shifted away from the big screen to the small screen. And listen, a Finn and Poe seems like a logical Star Wars version of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I wouldn't bet against that. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but I certainly wouldn't bet against it, Patrick. All right, Rebel Scum writes, been thinking that the only way Palpatine can hide his massive fleet would be that it was constructed and will be piloted by drones, not by troopers. Here's the thing, Rebel Scum, and this is something I think Star Wars forgets sometimes. And maybe here they're remembering. Space is a big place. The galaxy is a big place with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of worlds, and it's limitless. So I think sometimes we forget, like, we think very terrestrially, right? Like, the Earth is only so big, and there's only so many places you could have a big, giant hidden base, right? There's only so many places you could do that. It's very difficult in the age of satellites and blah, blah. But in Star Wars, space is very big. And, you know, one of the things that really did that well was the Bloodline novel about Leia. That really got into it. Like, you think, how can the First Order start putting together fleets and all that kind of stuff? You know, how does nobody notice? Because space is a big place. So, I mean, your theory could very well be true. I'm just saying, let's not discount anything else, because space is so big. It's limitless possibilities. All right. Emmanuel Torres writes, where'd he go? There he is. Emmanuel Torres writes, they're saying there is a huge Star Wars question answered in the first episode of Mandalorian. Any ideas what it could be? I'm at a little bit of a unfair position because I actually know what it is already. I had somebody I know who is involved with all things Star Wars. I got together with coffee and actually told me a lot of stuff. Not everything, but yes. There's a couple of very big reveals and questions that are answered in the first couple of episodes. So, but I can't say anything more because I'm in the unfortunate position that I actually already know. But I mean, I don't know everything, and I'm dying. I'm going to get up at 4:30 tomorrow morning. I'm recording this on Monday night. I'm going to get up at 4:30 tomorrow morning to watch Mandalorian before I go to the gym and come back to do the John Campea Show. So I'm still super, super stoked to watch it. I can't wait. All right. Jay Yondit writes, just glad to see you guys back together again. May the force be with you. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate that, and we're looking forward to tomorrow. All right, Alexander Dixikoff writes, theory, Palpatine possessed Darth Vader's mask. Rey and Kylo seem to destroy Vader's mask in the trailer. Is this how they beat him? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do the whole Harry Potter Horcrux thing. His spirit is bound to one of 7 Horcruxes, and if you destroy the Horcruxes, then you destroy Palpatine. I don't know. That seems a little bit too Harry Potter on the nose. Again, it's not the craziest thought. I mean, look, Kylo had an unhealthy attachment to that Vader helmet. Maybe, I don't know if they implied that he heard voices from it or not. I don't know if that was ever really implied. Maybe it was. And if so, maybe it was Palpatine from across the galaxy to that. I mean, I don't know. Anything's possible. I'm going to guess that that's not the case. Again, it feels a little too Harry Potter-ish on the nose. He bound his spirit into the Horcrux of Vader's helmet. Seems a little too on the nose, but it's like that other thing, Alexander. I don't know that I would put money against it. So let's see how that spins out. All right, Suthius writes, I think after The Mandalorian, we'll say Boba who? Never know. It depends on how good it is. Travis L. Marshall writes, so happy you guys are back together. One of my best nights was the AMC 1 millionth view rooftop party. When I got to meet both of you, love it. #balance. Well, thank you so much, Travis. And thanks for coming to that party. And, you know, seeing as this is on the John Campea YouTube channel, speaking of the 100 million views, sometime in the next 30 to 45 days, the John Campea YouTube channel will be crossing the 100 million view mark. And I'm going to be planning a party, lower key than the AMC was, because I don't have a $1 billion company behind me to finance it. But it's going to be lower key than that. But I think in January, after we're all done with Christmas, I think I'm going to book a little place probably in LA somewhere. And for any fans who are in the LA area, I'm sure Christian will be there as well. We're going to have a little 100 million view party. And hopefully, Travis, you'll be able to come out again. So thank you for that. And thank you for mentioning that, dude. All right. Kyle Muna writes, theory, Palpatine is not physically alive. It's not a crazy theory. Because, you know, one of the problems I had with the final trailer, and I enjoyed the final trailer, but one of the kind of question marks about it was, Palpatine's a big draw. So's Luke. Why not at least show... Everybody knows Mark Hamill's in it, so why not just show him, and why not show Palpatine? As a fan pointed out to me, John, what if showing Palpatine as he is in this movie is actually a major reveal? Because maybe he's not in the form that you think he is. And I went, you know what? That's a good point. I learn something new every day from our audience. And you never know. Maybe he's not physical form, and maybe that has something to do with why he wasn't physically in the trailer, because that would give that away. So it's not a bad theory, Kyle. All right, Kyle also writes, but was awakened by the Force plus trained Dark gray. Yeah, that's been a theory that's been batted around quite a bit as well, Kyle. Mark Schaefer writes, my two favorite Star Wars commentators back together again. Will John show up on the Schmodown? Unlikely. It's unlikely. Like, as you've seen, it's taking me 6 days just to get around to doing this companion video, which my apologies to everybody that it took that long. It won't take that long again, I promise. It's just a matter of schedule. I just don't have the schedule for it. I really don't. Now, what is much less time consuming is just popping in and doing something on the desk. Maybe you'll see me pop up on the Schmodown doing on the commentator's desk with Christian at some point. Both he and I have talked about how much we love doing the desk together, and he was very adamant, telling me he wants me back on the desk, as you know, as long as it fits in with their schedule and my schedule. So you might see that sometime in the new year. But as far as competing goes, besides, there's no point in me competing because there's no challenge in setting up a fight between a man and boys. It's just no thing there. But on the desk, you might see me there. All right, just having some fun. All right, let's see here. Fan of Peanuts writes, how would y'all like Leia to finish her story off? No preference. I stopped a number of years ago because I used to do it as much as everybody else. I decided a number of years ago, I am not going to be one of these movie fans because I was the worst of them. That predetermines how I think certain things should go in a movie. And then when they don't go the way that I predetermined they should go in the movie, I get pissed off or disappointed or whatever. It's like, it's not my way would have been better. I was the worst. I was the worst of that. And let's face it, a lot of film fans do that. The vast majority of film fans do it. I was the worst. So, nope. I just want to see what their plan is for wrapping up Leia. I think Leia lives because they're just using her scenes from unused footage from Star Wars The Force Awakens. She clearly didn't have a death scene in Star Wars The Force Awakens, so I got a feeling she's still alive. But I'm going into it with no pre-written script in my head. That's something fans do all the time, and we got to get a hold of that and stop doing that. So I'm not going in there with any predetermined ideas about how Leia should or should not go. So I just want to go in and see what they're going to do. All right. Fan also writes, do either of you wish to see Anakin again? Not really. Not me. Christian does. Christian very much does. I pretty much don't. But it's a lot like the other thing. There are ways and there are things that could be done that could make it interesting. And look, if it fits the narrative and it fits the story and it's not just shoehorned in there, it's like, well, you know what? Everybody would love to see Anakin again. Let's just put him in. As long as it's not something like that and it actually serves the story and serves the narrative and furthers, the storytelling, then I'm all for it. So generally, no, don't want to see him again. I think his part of the story is done and we should move on from him. But there are ways there are ways. And so again, kind of like the whole Leia thing, I'd just be open to see what it is they're going to do. So let's wait and see. Stephanie Hansen writes, will Kylo and Leia have a scene in episode 9? I find that hard to believe. I don't think they will. I don't think they will. It would be interesting if they could, but again, you'd be fabricating a scene because all of Leia's stuff is being done from already shot footage that wasn't used in The Force Awakens, and there was no unused footage of scenes between her and Kylo. It would feel very awkward to take a conversation between her and some Rebel Alliance radio technician and try to make it sound like a conversation between her and her son. Not impossible, but that would be quite challenging. So I'll have to wait and see. Fan of Peanuts writes, what's y'all's favorite moment in the prequels? Just to risk sounding stereotypical, but is the Duel of the Fates battle between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul. That's just... Listen, I don't like The Phantom Menace, but there are moments of that film that I love. That scene being one of them. The other that takes a lot of crap. A lot of people give crap to the pod races. I love the pod races. Visually, drama, they build drama into it, which is great because action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. There's dramatic purpose in all the action in that thing, and the sound design of the pod races by the great immortal Ben Burtt. The sound design that Burt does in those is crazy. I could just put on that scene and listen to the pod race scene. It's so fantastic. But I'll give the nod to the Duel of the Fates, the Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul fight. All right. The Wonder One writes, Just here to say hello there and support my two favorite people on YouTube. Thank you so much, Wonder One. We appreciate it. It's always great when people want to write in just to say something nice. So thank you for that so much. All right. Fanjecture writes, congrats, gents. Over under 15%, the Falcon gets destroyed in episode 9. I'm going to go over because I have a theory. I'm not saying this is what they should do. I'm just guessing this is what they might do. I have a feeling that the Falcon, Lando, and Chewie all go out at the same time in a blaze of glorious heroics. That's my guess. Again, I'm not saying that's the way I think it should happen or anything like that. I'm not trying to write the script, but if I had to guess something I think they're going to do, I think the Falcon, Lando, and Chewie all at the same time, all together on the Falcon, go out in a huge blaze of glory befitting the heroic icons that are Chewie, Lando, and the Millennium Falcon. It'll be something worthy of that status. And they're the ones left that deserve some big heroic hoorah. And I think that would be kind of cool if they did. It would be totally cool if they didn't too. So I'm going to go over 15% that the Falcon bites it. Over 15%. Eric DeRiggi writes, where are we at? Welcome Harloff to the filthy. That's right. Eric also writes, hello Greedo, confirmed that Padme's sister is canon. I still think that an extended family non-force wielding would have been interesting storyline, especially after the Bloodlines group. Whatever happened to Padme's family, I really don't care. I really don't care. Yeah, I don't care about Padme's sister or, who was the Chancellor's cousin? I've always wanted... Who was Chancellor Valorum's cousin? I think it would have been cool to know who's... Nah, I don't care about that stuff. I care about the main storylines and all and that. Now, look, that's not to say that you can't build something very cool around that. Sure, it's possible, but as a fan, that's not where my attention would be. My attention would be on other things completely. But that's just me, Eric. But I'm sure you're not alone in that thought. I'm sure you're absolutely not alone in that thought. And by the way, what's canon in Star Wars these days is becoming very iffy. It's really unfortunate. So one of my frustrations with Star Wars right now is they've become very loose with the definition of canon. But at any rate, Matthew Wally writes, do you think Rey has earned her Jedi stripes compared to Luke at the same moment? Plus, Luke needs a Gandalf the White moment in The Rise of Skywalker with Force Ghost help. Well, Luke doesn't need anything. Whatever they do with him, I just want to see what they're going to do. Has Rey earned her Jedi stripes compared to what Luke did? Well, what did Luke do? I mean, that's one of the things I got to keep reminding people in Star Wars is like, look, I know we've got these fairy tale ideas when we look at the original trilogy through rose-colored glasses sometimes. Me more guilty of that than anybody. But the fact of the matter is, what did Luke do? He was on the Falcon for a couple hours doing some blast shield down training with a probe. And then he spent a long weekend on Dagobah with Yoda. And then all of a sudden he shows up at Jabba's palace saying, I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight and friend of Captain Solo. Really? Really? Who bestoweth uponeth thee thy mantle of Jedi Knight? I mean, so... At this point, I kind of put them both on equal footing. Would I go crazy excited for a Gandalf the White moment with Luke Skywalker? Oh, of course I would. Yeah, I'll need to wear my white pants for that particular day if that happens, but we'll have to wait and see what they're going to do. All right, Anthony R. writes, John, it seems you only like Star Wars when the galaxy is enslaved by the Empire, but don't like the galaxy when it's free and full of Jedi. You like original trilogy and Rebels, but hate prequels and Clone Wars. Well, Anthony, here's the thing. You can try to construct anything. Okay, somebody likes this and don't like this. Okay, so this person only... No, it has nothing to do with that. I'm not a fan of Clone Wars. Although you can say that's when like a lot of the galaxy was under, all the galaxy was really under the manipulation of Palpatine. So that kind of goes out the window there. But yes, I love the original trilogy. I enjoy Rebels, although, Rebels was a little hit and miss sometimes. I'm enjoying, for the most part, the new movies very much, particularly the Force Awakens and Rogue One, particularly. But I also quite enjoyed the Solo movie, and I enjoyed The Last Jedi. But... the original, the prequels are just terrible. But this is the beautiful thing about Star Wars, is that just because I find the prequels terrible, that doesn't mean everybody does, nor does it mean everybody should. If yours, I'm not going to be one of these people that, here's the 8 reasons why you shouldn't like the prequels. No, man, if you like the prequels, I celebrate that. That's awesome. I personally don't, but that doesn't mean, as Chris Carr would put it, I don't want to yuck on your yum. But no, there's no formula to it, Anthony. There's no formula to what I will or will not like or anything like that. So that's just that. All right. Eric DeRiggi writes, over the weekend, What Culture YouTube channel said that David Lynch was picked to direct Return of the Jedi, and all right, I don't see a follow-up there. Yeah, that was one of the things that came up on a previous question on the, we were talking about the David Lynch stuff on the previous episode of, so thank you for the follow-up on that, Eric. Fan of Peanuts writes, if you felt The Last Jedi was in the range of a C to a B grade for enjoyment purposes, what would they have to, if anything, to increase your letter up one? I think the biggest problem with The Last Jedi, which I enjoy, I like The Last Jedi, but it would pertain to the very first thing. Like, you guys remember, if you follow me on social media, when I went to The Last Jedi premiere, and as soon as I came out of the theater, the very first thing I tweeted, for those of you guys who follow me, you know this is what happened. The very first thing I tweeted was the stuff that I didn't like. And the first thing I mentioned were twofold. Number one, all the Canto Bight stuff, all the Casino Planet stuff was garbage. And as an extension of that, considering much of that whole scene really revolved around with Finn and Rose, I just thought, the potential with the Finn character, particularly the way he was used in The Force Awakens, I thought was a really missed opportunity. Not to do anything specific, but not to do that. I mean, that was just a waste of his character and the waste of a really good potential character in Rose. And there was some really good potential there, and that was kind of squandered. So everything revolving around the Casino World stuff, if they just cut that scene out of the movies, I probably would have upped it 1 letter grade. The other thing is, you have an actor like Benicio del Toro in it, and I just thought that was one of the most throwaway characters ever. And like I said, there are several strong things I like very much about The Last Jedi, but those are the very first things I tweeted out when I came out. And I guess those would be the things that I would, if I had all the power to go back in time, and I wouldn't change them now because it's canon, but if I had the power to turn time back, if I could be Superman and fly around the world backwards and make time go in reverse, and I would whisper in somebody's ear saying, take these scenes out. Just take them out. Just take them out. That would be kind of my thought. But hey, there are going to be people who love those scenes, and that's great. Again, not wanting to yuck on anybody's yum. That if you enjoy those scenes, that's great. But since you're asking me, those are the things that I would have changed about that one particular film. All right. Anthony R. writes, so glad to see you guys team up again. Thanks so much, Anthony. Christian, who is not here, unfortunately, do you think that Rey can really bring back the Jedi Order? And do you think the books contain the lost knowledge, such as the original 7 lightsaber forms? I don't think they'll go into all that kind of stuff, to be honest. I don't think they'll go into that in the movies whatsoever. Can she bring back the Jedi Order? Absolutely. Like, one of the things, I think a lot of people misinterpreted one of the last shots we see in The Last Jedi, which is, of course, a little broom boy reaching out the broom, flying to his hand. A lot of people said, that means that kid's going to be in the next movie. No, it doesn't. I mean, now watch, maybe he will be, but I don't think it does. What I think that was saying was that the Force is doing throughout the galaxy what it has always done. The Force wasn't passed on through lineage traditionally in Star Wars. There were children born Force sensitive. The Jedi would identify them, choose them for training, and then train them up. And I think that those last shots in Last Jedi with Stable Boy with the broom, all that was saying to the audience was, the Force is at work again. The Force has awakened. It's at work again throughout the galaxy, imbuing some individuals born with Force sensitivity. So all they have to do in the opening crawl, if they wanted to, and there's a million different ways to do this, it doesn't have to be this way, but if they wanted to, all they have to do is when the crawl is like, okay, it's been 2 years since the events of The Last Jedi, or whatever, 3 years, however long. While Leia's been doing this to reorganize the resistance into the new rebellion and swelling their numbers and gaining support throughout the galaxy, Rey has gone on a mission, searching throughout the galaxy for young children born with Force sensitivity, blah, blah, blah. And she starts to put a new Jedi organization together that call themselves the Skywalker, hence the term The Rise of Skywalker. Again, I'm just spitballing here. There's a million different possibilities. So yeah, she really can bring back the Jedi Order. It just takes one. Is that the way they're going to go? We'll have to wait and see. All right. Paige Chandri writes, peanut butter and chocolate, my favorite two together. Oh yeah, because I mentioned, I can't remember what the question was specifically on Dark Side, Light Side that brought that up. I said, I'm just a big fan of chocolate and peanut butter together, whether it's Reese's peanut butter cups or, I was that strange kid at Easter. I'd get the Easter chocolate and then go grab a jar of peanut. I still do this as an adult. Grab it. You know what? I still do this every once in a while. If Ann and I walk down to the store to grab a couple little things we need, I'll grab a milk chocolate bar, bring it home, sit down, crack open a jar of peanut butter, and just scoop chocolate in the peanut butter. It makes me happy even thinking about it. Thanks for that, Paige. All right. Fan of Peanuts writes, which prequel is your favorite Star Wars music? Well, it's used in a couple, but I'll go The Force Awakens or The Phantom Menace just for Duel of the Fates. Duel of the Fates is one of the best things to come out of the prequels. And there are several highlight moments in all the prequels, but the Duel of the Fates is one of the best pieces of Star Wars music, period. I love Duel of the Fates, so that's mine for me. All right, Eric DeRiggi writes, best watch order, Rogue One, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm still very much a release order guy. I'm still very much 4, 5, 6, skip 1, 2, and 3. But if you have to, then 1, 2, and 3. Just the order in which it was released. I still think that's the best one. That's when people ask me, and I do get people asking me all the time saying, John, I've never watched Star Wars movies before, but I'm getting caught up in whatever fever. So which order do you suggest I watch these films in? I always go release order. That's the best thing to do. So, but hey, different people have different, there's no one definitive right answer. So, hey, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Why not? Why not? All right. Sujith writes, who are we kidding here? The Jedi lost the ability to use the Force because Palpatine was clouding everything with the dark side. Anakin was already his. Well, no, he wasn't preventing them from being able to use the Force. That much is clear. But really, the way I always interpreted it, in the midst of all the language, the way I always interpreted it was that Palpatine was basically using the Force to shroud himself, to hide himself from the Jedi, so the Jedi couldn't sense or detect him. But it's not like it was a more all-encompassing, they couldn't use the Force anymore. I think it was just he shrouded himself. I think that's what it was implied, but there's an argument to be made for other interpretations as well. Peanuts writes, what is the one thing you hate most about The Phantom Menace, excluding Jar Jar? Me, it's Anakin fighting in space, blowing up the Trade Federation ship. Executed Poor is like, let's try spinning. That's a good move. Whee! Yeah, that was pretty bad. There's a lot of stuff about Jar Jar, obviously. Some people don't like Watto. I liked the Watto character. I like the Watto character. Despite the fact that he sounds like a grumpy Italian, whatever. Okay, fine. But yeah, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to side with you on the space stuff. Brett Luckfield writes, the Emperor, I think, was always the plan. I agree. I think so too. His theme music shows up in the throne room scene in The Last Jedi. Love you both and happy to support. Well, thank you so much, Brett. I would say this. Now, you and I are in agreement on this. I believe Palpatine was always the plan. I don't know that for a fact, but I think he was always the plan. However, even though you and I agree on that, I will say this. Traces of the Emperor's music playing in that throne room scene is not necessarily a direct foreshadowing of the return of Palpatine. They may have just thought this music works good in this scene. It could be as simple as that. So even though I agree with you that I personally think like you think that Palpatine was always the plan, and again, I can't back that up, and it's just me speculating. I don't necessarily think that just because we've heard hints of overtures of the Emperor's music at different scenes that was necessarily meant that this was the plan, because it could have just honestly, it just could have been the fact that they They thought this music would work well in the scene. It could have been as simple as that. All right. And final thing here is, what's the one thing they have to nail in Mandalorian? Again, nothing. There's no one particular thing they need to nail. Tell this story and whatever the story is. Because I could say, oh, this one element is what they got to nail. But if they're telling a particular story that doesn't even involve that element, then it really doesn't matter if they nail that element or not. As long as they do something great and worthy and worthwhile, that's the important thing. I think if I were going to say anything in general, make it exciting. Because the trailers and the marketing seem to be pushing this idea. They're selling the idea of excitement. And if you can make it exciting, almost regardless of anything else, and again, we're talking in broad stroke generalities here, okay? We're speaking in completely broad stroke generalities. But if they can just make it exciting, I think that's like 7/10 of the battle right there. So we'll find out soon enough. As of right now, it is 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time that I am wrapping up this thing. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 7.5 hours, ladies and gentlemen. 7.5 hours from the moment of this recording, even shorter from depending on when you're watching this, till we get Mandalorian drops. Of course, we're going to talk about Mandalorian a couple of times. We're going to talk about Mandalorian a lot tomorrow. Number one, me and Robert Meyer Burnett are going to talk about it on the John Campea Show in the morning. Make sure you join us for that. Then number two, me and Christian Harloff are going to go in depth. Now, no spoilers on the John Campea Show, but me and Christian are going to go in depth on Dark Side, Light Side on the first episode of Mandalorian. So make sure you guys join us for that. And then probably a little bit later in the evening, me and Ann will do a post-show wrap-up for the Mandalorian as well. So tomorrow's going to be a lot of Mandalorian coverage. Absolutely there's going to be, and I can't wait for every freaking second. Anyway, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion to Dark Side, Light Side. Again, for the third time, my apologies, guys, that it took so long to get this particular companion video together. It's just about me figuring out the new schedule. It will be a much, much shorter wait next time if there are leftover questions again. So please forgive me for that, and it won't happen again. Guys, make sure, again, join me and Robert Meyer Burnett in the morning for the John Campea Show. Join me and Christian Harloff in the afternoon for Dark Side, Light Side. And guys, just have a fabulous day ahead of yourselves. Can't wait for all of us to watch some Mandalorian together. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot. And of course, may the Force be with you.